Welcome to For the Record, which is a conversation series where we talk to music heads about their stories and the music that makes them. Today, talking to Steph Guerrero, and really happy to have you here, and excited to to dive in. And we always kind of start at the beginning with your origin story and when your relationship with music began. And we'll work our way forward from there and have a little Q&A about, the music that you're into these days after that.
Sounds good. My mom loves the story, and so it's kind of apropos that I'm in my childhood bedroom right now to tell you this.
Mm.
But she says that at 2 months old, I was already kind of singing back to her whatever she was singing to me to go to sleep. So, according to her, I was singing since I was very, very little, and I've always had a very, very close relationship with music because of it. So I think that's my origin story, according to my parents. But according to me, I
Mhm.
just remember in first grade. I got told by the music teacher, they just tested us all, and I could match pitch, and they were very excited about this. And I didn't know if it was a good or a bad thing. I didn't know what that meant, but they were very excited, and so that kind of catapulted me into like joining chorus and doing all of these music classes and all of these music things because I could match pitch at a very young age, and it was very exciting. I got to learn tons of songs, and I would put on shows at home for my parents and my parents' friends, and my parents very gracefully indulged us and enjoyed all of it. Yeah, so that was my origin story with music.
Cool. Um, and then where does it go from there? Like after you're indulging, or after your parents are indulging you, did you expand beyond there and start to play for other people as well and sing?
Um, so, and this is where it kind of like falls off the rails a little bit as far as me performing goes. I love performing for my parents because it felt like a safe space to try things and fail. Um, and it was really funny. But the more I kind of started expanding the circle with my friends and my friends' parents, I just like the levels of anxiety just went crazy for me. And then I just had to come to terms with the fact that I either would have to do a lot to deal with that, or I could just enjoy music and help other artists succeed. And the nurturing side of me just really loves that. So I became more of like a business person. While I still, love and perform and be silly for fun, to do it seriously for me is just not, just doesn't make sense, I guess, in my world. So there's still sort of like this private stuff that, she'll have fun at karaoke and she'll, play music with her kids. But I still don't see myself as a performer. I am a music head. I love music. And I will always I don't think the 1 year of my entire career that I didn't work for music or musicians was probably the saddest year of my life.
Mm.
And so I think that's where I just turned to the other side because my other passion was always technology. And so I was like, okay, I will be that person that marries whatever musicians can do with technology or helps them kind of navigate that world. And that's what I've been doing.
Cool. Cool. Before we dive into that, I'm curious to hear what your go-to karaoke song is.
I really like to do upbeat songs.
Hmm.
Or songs that people kind of recognize but are not necessarily, super familiar with. So I always go with something from Queen. Somebody to Love is a fun one, or I really like singing Gloria because that's just a great song that not a lot of people have top of mind, and it reminds them, and it's good. That's in English, and in Spanish, anything by Selena is probably great to sing.
Nice. Cool. I love those. Um, Cool. And then so as you were making this transition or like having this this realization that the ways in which you wanted to pursue music were more about helping, other artists and, using your other passion, technology. How did that first manifest and if you could walk us through the history of that a little bit, it'd be great.
I think the first version of that was in high school. MySpace was kind of popping off. I made my MySpace page, and my MySpace page was a mess because I was always experimenting. Like, oh, I found some HTML code to like add some obnoxious kind of animation on top of it, like a little kind of like loop GIF thing forever. And so I would do all of that for myself. And then I realized I had a lot of friends that had local bands, and and they would just ask little things like, how do you add a red border? How do you do that? And so eventually I would just say, oh, let me do that for you. And I did a lot of MySpace pages. I learned, that's where I learned a little bit of Photoshop. Oddly enough, my dad was, he was like an import export guy for like video editing software. And so I kind of knew how to use Premiere already, but not Photoshop. Um, so I would help them with like do little music video editing, and then I would kind of incorporate it into their MySpace pages. I did a lot of MySpace pages back in the day, and so that was my first foray of like this is what music and technology is going to be. Of course,
Mm-hmm.
I was like one of countless kids in their bedroom downloading all of the music through Napster and LimeWire. So I also did
Mm-hmm.
that, not realizing the impact that it was actually having in the music business until I entered the
Right.
music business, and then I had kind of had to come to terms with that and what everything meant for me. Um, but those were like my first forays with music and tech.
Cool. And then how did it evolve after MySpace?
After MySpace, well, I went to college. I was still kind of doing the same thing. Helping my friends with MySpace. But then Facebook came around and I started experimenting with some of my friends. Like, what did that mean? The first iteration of Facebook was super simple, but you could add all of your college classes, and that's how you connected with other people. So I made a ton of friends that way. I think I still are on my Facebook friends list. Um, and I was trying to figure out how we can do that for a music artist, because you needed to have a college email address. So we graciously got my college to create an email address for a band that was it was like a school band. So it was a class. So they created an
Mm-hmm.
email address for them and we created a profile. And we were trying to figure out what that was going to mean. But I knew that just Facebook wasn't ready at the moment. So then we just went all in on MySpace because that's what made sense. And then through internships when I was in college, little things started rolling out. Like all of a sudden, there were artist pages that you could create and have an administrator of. Um, I was just always keeping up with all of those little updates, and that's how I made my case for a job. When I went to Sony, I basically said nobody here is doing social media. You're not you're not familiar with it. I'm doing it a lot because I'm in college and I've been working with local musicians. Just give me a chance. Let me test it out and see how this goes. They did. They gave me a chance to their credit. They kind of just let me experiment. I cold emailed so many people that I just saw like I found their email somewhere and I cold emailed them and I started making connections and at those social networks as well. And then I was able to express things like, this is what artists need. Like, can we have this feature or that feature? And so it was kind of cool because you would see things roll out at the same time that artists were kind of having different needs. And so then artists started embracing the technology, and on the side, the technology started embracing them.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and that must have been a really interesting moment, to be part of that, you know, that kind of intersection with, the emergence of social platforms. And then how did that role, I guess, when you got to Sony, like how did your perception of the music industry, how did it form and how did it grow through, that experience, that time?
I think my when before I entered working at a label, there was always a dream, right? Because I would always look at the back of that CD box and see who is the label and how I can get in touch with them. Um, but before I joined, I was just downloading music because I enjoyed it. I just wanted to consume as much as I possibly could. Everyone in their young age, that's what you want to do. Um, and then when I realized like the cost of everything, right? The cost of production, the cost of the creative cost that it comes with musicians, the cost of marketing music, which I still believe it needs to be just as much as is invested in creating the product. Um, I realized what this meant, right? I also saw rounds of layoffs going on while I was at Sony, and of course, because I was a new employee and my salary was much cheaper, they probably kept me along. But it was I hadn't kind of had come to terms and realize how disrespectful it actually was to both musicians and to everyone else. Back in that time, people would tour to support the sales of the album, not the other way around. Now you release an album to go on tour, so
Right.
it definitely changed how I felt about music and why it was so precious. And I became better at like storing my CDs and what they meant. And every one of those little boxes had a story for me and what it signified. And the ones that we would get for free through the label, for example, had a different meaning for me because it meant it was a gift. It's something I got because of, where I worked, and therefore I felt like I had a little kind of status symbol on myself. Even though to anyone else, you would see a box of CD, just because it had a perforation on it, you didn't know, you couldn't tell the difference between that and a CD and a CD you actually bought yourself. So
Right.
it's cool.
Do you remember, or I guess when thinking back to, like to the stack of CDs, that you got because you worked at the label, can you remember like, I don't know, three or four of them that stood out because of their art, because of the music?
Brandy Carlisle, I her album was just incredible, and like the cover that she had was her standing um at a door, and there was just backlit, so you couldn't really see her. It was just her outline. It was just really beautiful. Adele, when she came out with 21, I was at the label. It was the most incredible thing ever. And I had already listened to 19, and I got to see her perform, so I was already a fan. But we got it ahead of time of everyone, and I think actually it was released in the UK first, and then in the US. If I don't, I think that's how it was. But we got it when it first got released, and it was the most incredible thing. I was obsessed with it before anyone had it. I cried over it because it also coincided with a horrible breakup. So it was like the most
Mm.
perfect moment. And that's an album that I will never forget. And then there was an album by this band called Calle 13, and I always love their artwork. They always have a really great vision, and there's a ton of like creative ideas that we had that were awesome. Let's see if I have any of like the merch around here. But it was just so fun to see them kind of like think of this full concept. They thought of the music video, they thought of the cover, they thought of everything together. So it was like a package deal that I feel like right now and with streaming we miss out on because there's not all of that thought process put into just uploading something like a cover and just having the song available.
Totally. Yeah, no, it sucks. A lot of the context has been abstracted away from the experience, and it, really adds to the overall experience. And I think such a rich way. It makes it feel more tangible. Uh, I mean, I know eventually you're while working with the majors, working in kind of the legacy industry, if you want to call it that, you began to feel a bit jaded and started to explore uh, things like the blockchain and Web3, and if you could talk a little bit about how that transition came to be and what that experience has been like for you.
Yeah, I feel while I was at the label, I felt like they're not just their behavior is not to be innovators. They're very much reactive to what's happening. So even while I was at my last job, I realized that TikTok was kind of coming around, but I felt like they were already a year or two late to that because it was just, it takes long. I mean, to their credit, they really rushed their licensing so that, there was access to the music on the platform, but just like how to use it, what are the best use cases, like they already were late to it. And then I saw blockchain coming, and even though it's not like as front and center as it was when I took the dive, I still feel like it's going to be the future for music. And I wanted to use it for an artist that I had who had a super passionate fan base, and I was like, we can create something that's really special for them. They are selling out merch that I never thought would sell out. So they would definitely buy this, and I know they're going to figure this out. But because of labels and how labels work, it just took a really long time for them to kind of come around to the idea. And even then, when legal said it, they were okay with it, then the finance team wasn't okay with it because they weren't sure how they were going to process any income coming through the blockchain. And, what do they have to do? Like set up a wallet, which, in hindsight is like, yes, it would have been that simple. But to them, it felt like it was just a huge mountain to climb that they weren't involved with. So I realized, maybe just I can't do this here. I have to move somewhere else to innovate. And I just, after a reorganization, I decided to just say, this is time. I wanted to take some time with my family anyway. So let me just go away, regroup, and then dive in headfirst into this whole Web3 music world, and I did, and I've discovered some really, really amazing projects, and I firmly believe that some of the best music is being created by artists who have taken the time to figure this out, because that's how much they've also taken to dedicate to their music. So it's really cool.
Totally. Cool. It seems like a good segue into kind of the Q&A section of uh, this, of the show. Um, and I'm curious about three artists of note that you've heard for the first time in the past year. Um, and if you want to, if you want to differentiate between three artists who are using Web3 and three artists who are not, or just have them, be represented collectively, either or.
Okay, artists I've heard of. Let me see. Let me think. Well, obviously, I feel like the artists that I'm most obsessed with, and I don't know if I discovered them exactly like within this last year, but Zand,
Awesome.
yeah, but like Zand, for sure. I'm a fan of sad music, and he is an R&B singer who synth pop singer. I think that's how he describes it. Who does sad music? So that was like it was a super easy win for me. And he's doing this project in Web3 where he gives you an access pass to his songwriting camps. Um, and he's just writing these like beautiful, really sad songs that are like
Mm,
perfect for what I want. Um,
mm,
and what's great is I get we if you once you have the NFT, you also have access to the bounces. We're able to like listen to where he's at in the roadmap. And what's really cool, I'm just thinking of this, this iteration is obviously for a very small fan base, but as this grows, if you were to do this again, like at a bigger scale, how meaningful would it be to like have your tour and literally start your tour the day your album releases and everyone already knows the music because they've been listening to it for a while. So that's a really cool, I think, use case of the technology. So definitely love him.
totally.
And then my Latin side just really loves like to dance to music. So I've been obsessing with Excelencia a lot. And he's another guy that's being really thoughtful about what it means to release music. And so, now that stream counts is a big thing, he's saying, okay, let me create a cover that's forever evolving according to the number of stream milestones that I hit. And that's really cool. So then it gives fans an incentive, like other than like, let me just stream so my artist will be number one on the chart, which is fine. But this is, I think, a more exciting reward. It's like, oh, we're going to change the cover together. We're going to discover something else together. So that's really exciting to me. Um, and then the last artist, she's also on Web3. Her name is Casbell, and her music is just incredible. And she's from a town called Buenaventura in Colombia, which is not any of the major cities. Where she lives, it doesn't seem like there's a lot going on, but the music that she does is so powerful, and I love that she's very thoughtful about her releases and the music that she's creating. So I really love her. I have to sneak in one more. I just
Please
because
do.
I feel like I have to balance out the male versus female ratio. But
Mm,
there's this artist from Cuba, Yax Castillo, who also does sad music, and that's exactly what I love. And she just has this raw voice, and I just love how our life looks very different from what anyone thinks it looks. I feel like everyone's living a completely busy life where all of this is going on, while she's in Cuba, stuck with her, whatever musician salary that the government pays. Um, but she's connecting to the world through through like a VPN and her phone, and she's performing just beautiful, beautiful music, and she's being really methodical, and she's fundraising for her tracks, and it's incredible to me how here in the US, it might take, like $5,000 to get a good quality production with producers, everything you need. But over there, that's enough for like the full album, even some video production, etc. So I love how she's kind of used this technology and the people who are collecting from it to support her vision and make it, come to fruition. So yeah, those are the artists that I'm kind of obsessing with.
cool, cool, awesome. I haven't heard of a couple of those, so I'm excited to dive in. Um, and who is and actually first, how do you discover music today?
Today, how do I discover music? It feels Very bizarre. A couple of months ago, I would just literally go on Twitter Spaces and people would be playing music, and I would say, "Who is this? Let me listen to your music." And it was as simple as that. And it was beautiful because I was spending a lot of time there. But real life has caught up, and now I have other responsibilities, so I can't always be there. So it's usually a combination of like push notifications that I get from many places, and also a little bit of just diving through, discovery or aggregation platforms like Lila or Spinamp, where there's just tons of like Web3 music coming at you. The
Mm,
one complaint that I have right now is that a lot of those platforms are really pushing a lot of electronic music to me, and that's not my main genre. As I just said, I really love just sad music, so I have a really hard time sometimes navigating through. Um,
right.
but I feel like it does take a lot of like methodical thought process. I love a good rollout too. So there's a lot of kind of industry publications that'll say like, "Hey, this is a really cool thing. Check it out." And so I will do that because I just love seeing the story of what a rollout is.
Right.
And then of course TikTok. I feel like I don't know who is not discovering music on TikTok. I still am a little bit. Oddly enough, TikTok, I'm a mom now, so I'm on mom TikTok, so I get some like really fun like music that I never thought I would have discovered otherwise. But it's a fun music discovery platform. I think so.
Oh, can you, can, can you give us an example of something that you discovered on mom TikTok?
Um, what was I think it was a Ty Verdes song, which Ty Verdes is not a mom TikTok audio at all. But there was a mom using it to like cook this recipe, and I was at
Mm,
all not interested in the recipe. Like when she started making it, I was like, "This is I'm not gonna eat this." But
mm,
the song was so catchy that it just stayed on there. And then I just went down the drain doing that. There's also a lot of manifestation music on TikTok, and for some reason that
mm,
also is playing along very mom TikTok kind of things. Like here's how I started my own home business, and then you have like all these manifestation songs, which is that to me is so funny.
yeah.
I just mostly watch it for that reason. Yeah, those have been the last two. Like there's a whole song that literally just says money over and over, and it's like at first I thought I'm like this is so stupid, but it got stuck in my head, so I was like, well,
Yeah,
something is right, and it works really well.
yeah. Cool. Um, okay, who's a music community that you are particularly fond of that you want to give a shout to?
Oh, man, I will give a shout out to the Black Dave Token chat.
Nice.
It's a really thoughtful community that I think allows everyone to sort of be themselves. It gets messy like everywhere else, but I like that community. And then I also like the Wave World community. Wave World feels like it's just more positive. Everything is, kind of like happy vibes, and we need some of that in our world. So I appreciate Wave World for that.
Cool. Um, okay, cool. Who's most underappreciated artist from your favorite music decade?
Most underappreciated. I've been talking about this a lot, but Jessie J is a really, really good singer, and I feel like she is not appreciated enough for how talented she is. I know people go to see her, but the skill that she has to sing is just incredible. The control, and I've been watching some of the performances that she did while she was pregnant because she's still posting them, and I like having been pregnant myself, like I am just in awe at what she was able
Mm,
to accomplish while being in that state because that does put a lot of kind of like pressure on your lungs, and so
yeah.
yeah, I still feel like she needs a lot of more love and adoration because she's so talented.
Good answer. And then, yeah, this is the big question, which I think I've asked you before at some point, but you're going to a desert island and you get to bring three records with you. What are they?
Okay, I'm gonna say Zayn's The Beacon. I don't know if that's what the album's gonna be called, but all of the music on there is just amazing. I don't think there are any skips so far that I found in that album. Um, Beyonce's Renaissance because you need something that's just gonna make you happy. So I love that. Um, and then I'm gonna go with And this is gonna sound ridiculous, but the soundtrack, there's the Bluey soundtrack just because my son and I just enjoy it. It makes it happy and it just kind of helps us pass through the day. So the Bluey soundtrack, whatever, all the songs that are there, there's different editions of the opening song and a couple more songs with Bluey talking. So it's a great little album. Oh wait, no, actually, let me swap that one for the Hello Dolly soundtrack because that's the one that we're been jamming to recently. My son
Cool.
discovered it because it's on Wally. So in Wally, he's
Mm.
listening to Hello Dolly, and it has been just adorable to watch my 4-year-old talking about brilliantine and dime cigars when he has no idea what it is. So yeah, I'm gonna swap it for that one.
No, that's amazing. I love that you picked something like because of its connective, because it is like a connective tissue with you, and the person that you love. I think that's, it's a great answer and a good trio. Um, cool. And yeah, first, I mean, thank you so much, Steph, for being here and, for your time, your energy, all of the music, and all, of the work that you do. For people who are listening who might want to get involved in, where is a good place for them to check out your work or to get involved in the projects that, you're part of right now.
Yeah, awesome. So I have a website. It's just stephguerrero.com. I've a couple of artists keep asking me to kind of put a little workshop together, so I do. Every couple of months, I'll get a couple of artists together. We'll sit down. We'll go over the basics of Web3 music and what that means. I also do another little talk where I talk to artists about just building fandoms and thinking about the longevity in their careers instead of thinking of single release cycles, which I know that's where most of the industry kind of is kind of pushing everyone. So yeah, I'm doing a lot of that. I also consult with artists who just want to sit down with me for an hour or 15 minutes, whatever it is you want to book. I'm open to it. You can do all of that on my website. And then we're still working this project Legato, though it won't be most of my time invested on there, but it's still a really cool feature for any artist looking to license out their music. So, it's always going to be part of something that I work on, and it's definitely a passion project for both Roy and I. So if you want to check that out, that's at legatohq.com, and you can try to license your music.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you, Steph. And now that you've been on the show, who is another music head that, we should have on?
I don't know if you've had CY on here,
No,
but
not yet.
you definitely should have CY on here, or Sexy, as we like to call him on the streets. That's just a joke. Someone misread his Twitter moniker as Sexy, but
That's
his name is
funny.
CY. He just loves
Mm.
music, and I love people who love music, and I think he's a great
Yeah,
person to have on
same.
here. Um, and then Lindsay with an E. Love Lindsay. She's another music head, and she's constantly going to shows and participating in things. So those are two people you definitely should have on the show.
Okay, awesome. Cool. Those are great recommendations. Um, all right, amazing. Thank you so much, Steph. It's really been great to catch up, hear your story again, and hear about all of your music. Thank you, for your time.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Be in touch.
Bye.
All right, take care.